Hey everybody, this is the Big Buckarama, and welcome to what I hope is one of many IEM reviews. Just want to say a big shout out to all of the fine folks over at Reddit and r/IEMs who really encouraged me to um, branch out and do some more reviewing outside of just the things that I post there in the subreddit. And without you guys, I wouldn't be doing this now. So thank you for the constructive criticism and the well wishes. And this is for you guys, so I hope you enjoy it. Obviously, today on tap, we're going to have the EW300 HBB edition. I do apologize, the quality of this is not going to be very great, and frankly, we're having some forest fires around here right now, so my allergies and my asthma are a little bit acted up, and I may have to clear my throat a few times. So I know it's annoying, I'm annoyed by it, so I apologize if it annoys you. So let's go ahead and get straight into the unboxing here. Unboxing is pretty typical. This is your normal sleeve over box style. When you do receive it in the mail, at least from Linsole, they do package it in a nice outer box, which is, pretty good quality. Protects everything on the inside from getting damaged in shipping, which I always appreciate, double boxing. And the box itself is a nice little textured finish on it. It's nice and glossy, kind of has a little bit of a texture to it there. And it's kind of your overall standard box. Has a little bit of a picture of the driver down there, kind of a ghost image of it. On the back, it's got some frequency response graphs, and surprisingly, this does actually have a name. This is the Love and X. If you see there on the product name, it does say Love and X. So those that say this does not have a name, like the maze or the shark, no, it does. It's the Love and X. So go ahead and get into the unboxing here real quick. Move the sleeve. You can see you're greeted by a paper card here with a kind of embossed printed silhouette of the two IEMs and the Love and X branding down there in the corner. And of course you're greeted by the IEMs at the top and an accessory box below. When you first open these up, the actual ear tips are actually included underneath here. You can see it says accessories up here in the corner. But I've removed those and put those into the included carrying case. And if you ever wanted to know, there's also a little bit of information here on this paper card. That's the serial number information and all that for counterfeit purposes and what have you. Inside of this box is your little carrying pouch. And in the inside the box is also your manual and your 100% official, totally not offset print warranty card. I don't know if you can see that, but it's 100% printed on there with ink, so a lot of good that does you. And here is the carrying case. I suppose if you have no carrying case, this is okay, but as you can see, the stitching quality is it's not the best. It's pretty well, how you doing? Zipper's not straight. It's janky. It'll protect your IEMs, but it is absolutely sacrificial and certainly not near as good as something you could, get for say $10 on Amazon. And this is nice. So inside of here, you're going to have your IEM cable. This is the same cable that was in the EM6L. It's a perfectly serviceable cable, fairly flexible, doesn't really have a memory. I personally did not use this cable during my testing. I used this Tripowin Noir cable with a 4.4 millimeter adapter on it. It's just how I test using one of my two dongle DACs here. Inside the accessory package, you've got these tuning foams. More on this later. You have an extra set of gaskets, extra set of tuning nozzles. More on these later. And of course, your 3 sets of small, medium, and large ear tips. These are pretty standard. We've seen these in other IEMs before. It has kind of the stiffer black nozzle on the inside, kind of like a rubberized nozzle, and then has the softer silicone outer bell on the nozzle itself. These are very universal fit, pretty well known. And that pretty much does it for the accessories package. Now, one thing I will note that I was kind of disappointed about the build quality IEMs. Fit and finish on them is perfectly fine, but I don't know if you can really see it, but you kind of see in that X there, you see how it's kind of got those scratches on it? those were there and even visible with the plastic still on. Um, these scratches, I think what they're doing is they have like they're putting this is just a sticker inside of an embossed faceplate. And I think they're taking like a spudger or something and like running it along there, kind of like a pencil almost, to make sure that that sticker gets set in there, and it kind of pre-installs scratches on it. So even though they put this little cover on there to protect it from rubbing against the top of the box and shipment, um, it doesn't really do much, unfortunately. The IEMs themselves, let me go ahead and pop it out here. If you have seen the EW200, it is the exact same shell, pretty much. It's the same size, the same shape, generally the same silhouette. The EW300 is a little thinner than the 200. I don't know how well the camera's actually picking that up, but it is a bit thinner. It has a little less girth in the width of it there. Not enough that it's really noticeable, but in the ear you kind of notice that it fits a little bit flatter, which is kind of nice. So yes, of course, the most important thing to note here is all of the EW300 models sound exactly the same. Whether you get the standard EW300, the EW300 DSP, or the EW300xHBB, there's no tuning differences between any of them. That has been confirmed by Simgot and also by Nozzle and several social media posts. They're all exactly the same. Now, obviously, if you get the DSP model, it's going to come with a DSP cable, and the DSP cable does have slightly different tuning, and we will talk about that later when we start talking about the sound. Now, speaking of the sound, these do come with the silver nozzle pre-installed, and you have an alternative gold nozzle that does provide a little bit of a bass boost to it. And these tuning foams that come in here, these are not installed in the nozzles by default. These are an added extra, and we will talk about those. So on initial kind of first blush, when I first started listening to these, the sound was quite pleasant. It was very energetic, had a lot of energy to it, has a decent amount of body. Treble extension was decent. Bass felt pretty good, and overall they're a fun listening set of IEMs. Their comfort and their fit makes them very, very good for all day listening. Makes them very, very comfortable and just nice to listen to. I had really no problem with it. But there's a but here. There's kind of a big but here. The more I started listening to these, and when I started getting into comparative listening, I started getting into critical listening, I started to notice that there were some flaws here and some very, very weird things going on inside of the tonality. Now, I don't know if this is related to the the tuning of maybe the planner driver or the tuning of the PZT driver, or maybe it's just something in their crossover network. But there is something about the tuning of this that creates a very odd, I don't know if you want to call it a resonance, a synergy. There's something inside the tuning that makes this sound off. And it affects the timbre and tonality. It affects the cohesiveness of everything. And it took me a lot of listening until I finally kind of put my finger on what it was exactly that was going on with the sound of these. And what I've noticed is that there is, when you have high energy moments, and by high energy, I'm talking about like the striking of a tom-tom or a snare drum, or a really energetic, very prominent kick drum sound, or like on a string bass, the initial pluck of a string bass, where it's very resonant and has a very powerful, very broad spectrum energy to it. For some reason, the EW300 kind of falls flat, and it's very difficult to kind of describe, but it's almost as if there's like an active noise cancellation going on inside the headphone at certain frequencies. It's very, very strange, and the more you listen to it, the more you hear it. And I also noticed, the more I started listening to it, I also noticed that there was a similar kind of effect happening in the upper frequencies as well. And a lot of those high energy bass drums, or tom-toms or, bass kicks, or bass drums, on string basses. They again, they cover a very broad spectrum of the frequency range, and I think where that lands in the frequency range happens to be wherever these like weird anomalies are happening. And like I said, it's almost like a like active noise cancellation has been activated, which makes me believe that maybe the planar is in reverse, or maybe there is the PZT driver might be reverse polarity. Perhaps there is, I said, maybe something in the crossover network. It was just really, really strange. And again, it really started to bother me. The other thing I noticed too was that as I started listening to it, there were certain songs that, strangely, for as much as the treble is rolled down on this, started to show sibilance. I started to hear a lot of sharp sibilance on S's and on, certain cymbal crashes. They started to have this really weird sound to them. And I thought, okay, well, it's a little peaky there. Maybe I'm getting some strange pinna gain. I will try the gold nozzle. So I thought, okay, I'll try out the gold nozzle, see how it does this. Do not use the gold nozzle. The gold nozzle shouldn't even be included in this set. It should be completely thrown away and forgotten immediately upon buying. The gold nozzle absolutely kills the soundstage, absolutely destroys any detail that this headphone was producing, and makes it sound so flat, so dead, so hollow. It was terrible. I mean, it was bad enough that, like, legitimately I pulled out like some old cheap IEMs that I bought probably a decade ago that cost, like 10-15 bucks, and they sounded better than this did with the gold nozzle. Like, no joke. Very disappointing. Again, I don't know why they included these. So I thought, well, you know what, maybe I'll mess around a little bit and try the foam tuning. Maybe these need the foams in them. Put the foams in them. It was even worse. Said, no, not going to do that. Now, surprisingly, the only person who has actually shown any type of tuning with these foams has been Paul Wasabi, and I'm going to shamelessly use his graphs a little bit later to show some of the comparisons that I'm doing, because I'm not cool enough to have my own coupler to do these. But I did end up throwing these foams into the silver nozzles, and that got rid of a lot of the weird sibilance that I was hearing, and was able to bring everything kind of into a little bit more cohesion. I did lose a slight little bit of soundstage, but it didn't affect the bass performance. It didn't affect mid bass. It only kind of dampened that upper region. So if you do decide to get these, I would highly recommend that the first thing you do is leave the silver nozzles on there, take them off, apply one of these little foams into the nozzle, screw them back on, and enjoy it, because I think it will greatly improve your overall listening of the IEM. Now, when I got into critical listening, there were a couple of things that really stood out for me. I'm not going to do like some reviewers do and sit here and name off 40 different songs that I listen to, and kind of sit here and like humble brag on the obscurity of my audio library and how cool I am. I'm going to basically give you 2 songs that I listened to these on that immediately drew out the shortcomings of what was going on sound-wise here. So if you want to listen to them yourself, you can do these comparative listenings as well. 2 songs that I have here. Number 1 is Sade's Smooth Operator, and the second song is Red Hot Chili Peppers' Can't Stop. And with Can't Stop, we'll start there. With Can't Stop, the first thing I noticed, and again, this goes back to the percussion issue again, when the toms are coming in and they're kind of like starting before they get to the main guitar riff of the song, those tom hits sound hollow. They don't have any presence or decay to them at all. And then right before the main guitar riff comes in, it's like he's got like a bigger tom off to the left hand side of his drum set. So he's got like tom, snare, tom, 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 big tom. And so he's like da 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 boom, and he hits the 2 big toms on either side and the bass kick at the same time. And there's this boom, this kind of like hit and decay of the bass that happens. That decay is gone in these. And the high energy just stops. And it's very, very hollow at that point. The second part of it is when the main riff on the guitar comes in, the guitar is sitting in the back right hand corner of the soundstage where they're working, and it's up against a wall. And the backside of the cabinet is open, and you hear the reverberation of the cabinet coming off the wall and reflecting back out into the room into the main mix. And I don't know if it's the drum kit that's picking it up or another vocal mic, but you can hear the reverberation of off the wall of that amplifier. That was completely lost in this, which is very, very strange. Even though you get decent-ish soundstage and relatively good note separation and really good note weight just about everywhere else, some of that like little micro detail, I don't even call it micro detail, I just call it just straight details. Not even really micro detail, just detail. A lot of that detail just disappears. It's just gone, and you lose that entirely. And you still have good positional. You can tell the guitar's over here. You can hear his toms on the drum set. You can hear the cymbals here. You can hear him singing dead center. Everything still works, and there's still, it's still being produced, and you can still hear some of the nuance to it. But it's still very flat. Even though it's doing things, it's just flat, and it sounds, for lack of a better word, it sounds cheap. It sounds like a low quality pair of speakers that are decent. And that's kind of insulting to say to Simgot, but there's something not right with this. And my apologies to JTIS and to Tone Deaf Monk, because I kind of flipped them shit in the review because I was still in the honeymoon period of these listening to them, and they kind of both hit on the same thing. I was kind of like, did you even fucking listen to these things? Like, come on. Until I really started like critically listening to them, and I was like, yeah, this is not it. The next song, like I said, Smooth Operator by Sade, all of that is primarily her vocal. Now, most things are very vocal forward, and it really pushes the vocal forward, and the vocal sounds really great, and I think that's largely due to the planar driver, and they're really doing what planars do. But with her voice, and again, I don't know if this is the PZT, I don't know if it's the planar, I don't know if it's the crossover network, but her voice will come in and out and in and out and in and out. And it's not just a consistent voice or a consistent vocal that has, good tonality across the whole thing. It will come in and come out. It'll feel like it's veiled in the back, and then it'll come forward, then it'll get veiled, and it'll come forward. And there's no cohesion to anything. It just falls apart. The bass still sounds decent, and the initial opening tom-toms sound really, really good. And then as soon as this song starts going and it picks up its tempo a little bit, and you get to the main chorus where it starts to pick up a little bit of tempo and a little bit of energy, and there's the initial bum bum of the bass drum again right before the chorus starts, it just sounds dead. It sounds flat. It sounds like there's nothing there. It's hollow, and there's no rhyme, no reason to it, and I can't figure it out. And the problem is, for the $80 or $60 to $80 that the various EW300 sets go for, I can't recommend it at that price. I can't. And so because of these weird anomalies that are on here, I'm not going to be recommending the EW300 anymore. This is not going to be on my recommended list. I am going to, sadly, recommend and caution against them because of this. And I think the biggest problem with the EW200 is this IEM right here. This is, of course, the Tangzhou Fudu X Divinus collab IEM. And this is a very, very similar design to the EW300. Small body. It is a resin shell. It does have, kind of a textured plastic cap here, but it doesn't feel cheap by any means. But the bass extension on this is excellent. The treble from the BAs is very, very crisp, and it transitions very well between the to the DD and also to the BA. There's very, very good tonality there. The timbre's a little off here and there, but if you've never experienced, a super high dollar IEM, you wouldn't notice it. It's just good sound quality. Vocals are excellent. Vocals come through clean. They're very, very consistent. There's no weird peakiness or anything like that. These have a very low pinna gain. They're not sibilant at all whatsoever. And the best thing about these is that they also come with a great accessory package. And I have these here, but these ear tips here, these are the Tengzhu Senkai ear tips, and you get these set, the yellow, the blue, and the green here. They're the small, large, and medium. These 6 come in with the Divinus, and you also get the Divinus velvet tips with it. And you only get a little carrying pouch with it, which is neither here nor there. It's not a hard shell case like, this one is. But again, $10 on Amazon. So, this also, because this has been out for a while, this is almost always on sale. And I know some people are like, no, you can't talk about that. You really shouldn't be saying that because, it's the MSRP and sale prices aren't the same. Yeah, whatever. The fact of the matter is this is almost always on sale. And if you aren't buying your IEMs on sale, you're kind of doing it wrong. Like right now, this is available on Amazon, 20% off. Yes, it is a $90 IEM. Yes, it does come with a bunch of cool ear tip accessories. It does also come with a 4.4 millimeter option for the cable. Cable's nothing fancy, but as you can see, it lays fine. It seems to handle things just like you'd like. There's nothing wrong with this IEM at all. And at 20% off, it's cheaper than the EW300, which is still at full price right now because it is new. And I think that overall, musically, this is the better IEM. Tonally, this is the better IEM. As far as detail goes, this is the better IEM. And along with that, I'm going to bring out an oldie but a goodie, and that is this, the Tin Hi-Fi T3 Plus. This was released a couple years ago, and some people have automatically discredited this one and kind of thrown it under the bus for being an old IEM and kind of being yesterday's news. But I still find that this IEM tonally matches up very, very well with the EW300 and also with the Fudu, in that it has a very rolled down treble range and treble region, but inside that it still maintains excellent detail, still maintains very vocal forward. It's only a single DD, so there will be issues there. But if you don't like the really, really high treble, kind of bright and super high energy of, say, something like the EW3, or not the EW300, but the EA500, the EA500LM, this is a perfectly fine alternative. And again, like the Fudu, this is almost always on sale because of its age. You can find this on sale usually for, less than $50 on some occasions, even from a major retailer like Linsol or Hi-Fi Go, or even on Amazon. But the reality is, and this is kind of something that I think hurts a little bit to say, I think that probably the worst offender and the kind of worst comparison to make for the EW300 that really kind of seals the deal for me is that the fact that its little brother still exists. Pardon my rat's nest of a cable here. I literally only have this cable for aesthetic purposes and the fact that it is a 4.4, but it's the EW200. The fact that the EW200 exists, and this is a $30 to $40 IEM any day of the week, is the biggest factor not to get the EW300. Because this exists, there's no point in getting this. And again, we'll take a look at some graphs now, and I think you will largely see what I'm talking about here. So let's go ahead and bring the graphs up now. And again, big thanks to Paul Wasabi for doing all this lovely work for us, because like I said, I don't have the measuring equipment, so hopefully he doesn't mind me stealing his work to show you guys and give you some good consumer insight here. But here we can very clearly see the EW200 on the green line and the EW300 on the blue line, and you can see they track very, very similarly. And the squig link is or the squig I should say is a really good kind of general reference point, but it doesn't really tell you how these sounds decay. It doesn't tell you where the bass comes in and goes out. It doesn't really tell you much of anything as far as how the sound is presented. And in the case of the EW200, that weird hollowness that happens inside of the high energy bass kicks doesn't happen here. It's full energy, it's full bodied. You still have excellent treble extension out here in the kind of the 4 to 6 to 8K range. Even though it dips a little bit, it still carries a little bit more, obviously, than the EW300 does. And that gives a little bit more energy to female vocal, a little bit more energy to like acoustic guitar, things like that. And these little, couple dB more that you get out here in the like 12 and 16K region, this also will help add to like kind of the twinklies and sparklies, as Acros likes to call them. And truly, for $40, I genuinely believe the EW200 sounds better than the EW300 in most genres of music. I think the EW300 does have a little bit more vocal forwardness to it, and I think that kind of helps it a little bit. And on things where some tracks get a little bit busy and the DD of the EW200 might be a little overwhelmed, it's still, tonality and timbre wise, is better than the EW300 because you don't have any weirdness going on there. So if we go ahead and look here too, we'll bring up the the EW300 with the gold nozzle, and you can see that the gold nozzle really scoops this pinna gain area here, and it gives this weird peak. And this really makes this region at 3K feel very honky. And it just, this area where most of like the kind of the initial detail from the mids comes from is it's gone. And even though these areas here are still nice up in the treble region and still generally kind of follow the same curve, it just, there's no detail. It just completely kills any amount of detail that is and would be present on the IEM. It's horrible. And frankly, I'm kind of appalled when I've looked at some of the reviews and I've seen a couple people make comments like, well, I tried the gold nozzle, but I didn't notice any discernible difference in the audio quality. I would really suggest that, first of all, maybe, you might not want to be taking that person's opinion to heart. And to any reviewers who say there's no difference between the gold and the silver nozzle, you might want to see your audiologist, because damn, bro, it's different. It's very, very different, and not in a good way. So definitely, worth being concerned about. Now, the other thing here that I also wanted to point out was running it with the foam. And this is where I really wanted to show what putting that foam in there does. And you can see immediately with the foam, we get a little bit more rise here through 5 to 6K, which sounds really good. And then you notice this 10K hump gets totally pulled down. And this, I think, is more tonally accurate and sounds better to my ear and makes the IEM a little bit more cohesive. The issues with the higher energy not really being well transmitted or well conveyed, and kind of having that hollow feeling to it, is certainly still there. It doesn't remove it, but putting that one single foam in there does make a difference. And full credit to Paul Wasabi for actually testing this. Nobody else that I have seen has put one of these foams into the nozzles and then run a frequency test. He's the only one. So full credit to Paul Wasabi. You're doing everybody in the community a favor by actually paying attention and doing these things. Very, very well done. And I commend you for doing that. So for the rest of my tests, I'm just going to leave that as the primary squig that we'll be basing everything off of. And I'm going to like to, again, bring up the Tangzu Fudu. And the Fudu, as you can see, is very similar in the way that it tracks and trends. And you can see it has a little bit more, instead of a typical, like, gliding bass where it's just kind of, mostly a straight line through the sub bass area. You can see that it has this nice kind of little bit of a hump there, a little bit of a kind of like room gain, I guess you could call it. So as it gets up into the sub bass areas up here, kind of south of 50 hertz, it still really has a lot of really good energy, and it's very accurate as well. You can see the mids here pretty much tracks just about the same. There's a little bit more as it starts to come in past 1K for vocals. It looks really, really good. And then up here, we usually kind of get this pinna gain. I do prefer this flatter tonality, but the good thing is that this doesn't, in practice and in ear, this is not detracting from the sound. This is actually really helping to smooth this region out, and it prevents it from having that kind of glariness that can happen with BAs because of the pinna gain. This through here, again, functionally in ear, these pretty much sound the same. There is a little bit more of a rise at 8K. Some of this is going to be coupler resonance, obviously, but the detail is there. Very excellent detail, and you can see it's very well controlled, and you don't get these spikes here like you do on the EW300. And the benefit of that is that there's just overall the tonality is much more cohesive, and it just feels better tuned. And again, given the fact you get a great set of tips that you can use in other IEMs, then you can do things with, that's awesome. The accessories package with the extra tips on there, I think, that's $40 worth of tips or more, really. And you're getting an IEM that is technically superior to the EW300, in my opinion, in technicalities, in tonality, in vocal clarity, in bass clarity, and in bass energy as well. So highly, highly recommend the Tengzhu Fudu as an option to the EW300. And then going to our oldie but goodie friend here, we can see the T3 Plus. Now the T3 Plus, again, single DD, we can see doesn't have as much extension in the sub bass area, but it does have a really good mid bass and kind of moving towards sub bass. It has a nice little gain here. In practice, it doesn't sound like it's lacking bass, but we can also see that through these mids here, there's a little bit more energy through the mids up from that 1K to 2K region. So vocals are very clear. They're not quite as forward as what you get on the EW300, but because there is a little bit more of this shelf here, it does give a little bit more brightness to the vocal clarity. It does kind of drive them a little bit further forward. But again, you can see that the treble extension from 5K onward, or 6K onward really, is pretty much bang on. And you do have at 10K here, it's a little bit flatter, so the tonality of it is a little less kind of that's what I'm looking for. It's I don't want to use the Acros expression of it's got more polish, but it is a little bit more neutral, I guess you could say. It's a little bit more less wow factor, more just reproduce the sound, call it good. But because you do have this little hump over here, kind of near 16K, it does still provide a little bit of kind of added detail to it that is, again, kind of helps with things to make things feel a little bit more special, without being sibilant, without being harsh in any way, shape, or form. This is a very, very easy IEM to listen to all day long. Comfort, at least for my ear, is excellent. The nozzle position, the size, everything is absolutely spot on with the T3 Plus, and it has excellent soundstage. It's not super wide, but it's wide enough, and it's certainly wider than the EW300 is. There's maybe perhaps not as much instrument separation as you would get with the EW300, but again, the timbre and tonality makes the music feel more cohesive and makes it feel more a part of what you're listening to, rather than kind of that strangely disjointed kind of weave in, weave out that you get with the EW300. So realistically, like I say, when we kind of overlay everything here, if you like a little bit more forward vocal, go for the T3 Plus. If you have a problem with pinna gain, go for the Fudu. Fudu is going to give you a little bit better treble extension with those BAs being there. And again, the EW200 at the price point it's hard to beat. For $40, it's a hell of an IEM, and I wish that Simgot had maybe done a little bit better to kind of differentiate the EW300 rather than just, rolling off the treble and kind of calling it a day. I feel like they kind of dropped the ball on it a little bit. So, because of all that, unfortunately, like the name implies, these particular IEMs from Simgot will be an X. And these will be getting sent back, and I will be returning them because they don't really do much for me, and I don't think they're really that amazing. And like I said, they're going to be removing off of my recommendation list. And if anybody asks about the EW300 as a recommendation, my go-to recommendation is going to be Tangzu Fudu. So, if you have any questions, any comments, please feel free to go ahead and leave them down there. I will try to respond to as many of them as I possibly can. Of course, as always, I will be back in Reddit threads making comments about things there too, so you'll always catch me in that area. I hope you've made it through this full 35 minutes. I hope you didn't get completely bored listening to me ramble about this, and I hope more than anything that this has at least been educational and you've learned something from this and you can be more informed as a buyer. Anyway, hope you have yourself a wonderful rest of the week, and hopefully we'll do another one of these again sometime real soon. Take care.